Hey Management 3401, welcome to a new week. We're going to start on chapter 7 now that we are done with the quiz. I have my notes here, so let's get started talking about chapter 7. So chapter 7 is about organizational structure, and organizational structure is essentially how we choose to allocate the resources that we have within the firm. So then that includes how we allocate people, how we allocate technology, and how we distribute tasks across the people in our firm in a way that brings us closer to achieving our goal. So organizational design is the process by which we determine what the proper organizational structure is. So the structure is how we decide to allocate all of our resources, and then organizational design is the process by which we decide how to allocate those resources. So of course, in making decisions about our organizational structure, we have to take into account what's happening around us in the environment. So what are our peers doing? What's going on in the general environment? Maybe new laws, maybe shifts in the economy. And then we also have to take into account our people. So who do we have working for us? What skills do they bring to the table? We have to think about the technology that we have on hand. What do we have at our disposal to use? And then of course we have to have our strategy at the top of mind. So how do we work in alignment with what's happening in the environment, because those things are probably out of our control. And then with the technology and the people that we do have, how can we use all of these factors or work with all of these factors to bring us closer to carrying out our strategy. So when we're thinking about organizational structure, it sounds very big picture. How do we structure our organization? How do we allocate things? But down to the individual level, the question becomes, how do we design each of the jobs for our employees? And so there are different ways that we can design a job for an employee. And so for some organizations, it makes sense to engage in job simplification. So that's where we have each employee do a certain set of tasks. So we don't want one employee doing a variety of tasks. We want this one employee doing the same type of task. So a good example of this would be in like a factory line, right? So this one employee is responsible for doing this part of the process, and only this part, because the next person is going to take it from there and do that person's part. So that would be an example of job simplification, like a factory assembly line. So on the other end of the spectrum, we have job enlargement. And so that's when we do want this one employee to do a variety of tasks. So a benefit here to enlarging a job design is to allow the employee to be a part of it from start to finish. So instead of saying, I want you to do this one part of this project, you say to the employee, I want you to do this project from start to finish. And a potential positive outcome of that is that the employee feels more invested in the project, because the employee sees how, like very clearly, how her contributions have led to this outcome of the completed project, versus the employee on the assembly line who might not get to see how important his or her part of the process is, because that employee isn't seeing the whole process from start to finish. Ultimately, with job enlargement, we see more enrichment just because an employee feels more tied to the project because the employee is more involved. The employee is working on it from start to finish. So researchers came up with job characteristics model, which are elements that research has found contributes to greater job satisfaction and lessens the likelihood that the person will leave or lessens the likelihood of absenteeism. So those factors that should be included in jobs in order to enhance job satisfaction include skill variety, task identity, task significance, autonomy, and feedback. So skill variety means that this job requires a variety of skills. So if we're writing a job description for a certain job and we're hiring somebody for it, then we would essentially be asking that this person bring multiple things to the table, multiple skills and experiences to the table versus we just want to make sure that you know how to write emails. You know, it's more so like we need you to be good at writing emails. We want you to be good at making presentations. Do you work well on Excel spreadsheets? You know, it's like multiple skills. And people feel more satisfaction when they're able to draw on multiple skills. And then we also see greater satisfaction when there's more task identity. And so that is essentially the idea of job enlargement, where you're allowing this person to be a part of the process from the start of the project to the end. And so they identify with the success of the project. And then task significance means that this person knows that his or her contributions to the company is actually meaningful. And autonomy is freedom. It means that nobody's micromanaging you. People are giving you the freedom to complete the task and schedule them in your day as you see fit, instead of somebody saying, I need you to do this part of the project at 3 o'clock today. You have the autonomy to say, I'm going to work on this part of the project at 1 o'clock on Wednesday. And then feedback. So feedback is really important because people like to know where they stand. And so it's just like giving people feedback on what they've already done and then also what they can do going forward to continue to grow within the company. So at the larger level, the macro level, when we think about organizational structure, we're thinking about the design of the organization, not just the design of that one person's job or multiple people's jobs. So there are various structures that entrepreneurs start when they're just starting their companies, and the structures change as the company grows. So a lot of times, and your book doesn't talk about this, but when people are first starting a company, it typically starts off as a simple structure. And so that is where you have just one or a couple of employees, and people's job descriptions aren't really set in stone. It's more so you need to get in where you're needed. And so the person who's hired to bring up customers might also be found sweeping the floors. So that wasn't in the person's job description, but if the floors need to be swept, we only have 3 employees here, sweep the floor. And so it starts off very simple, a simple structure. That's how most businesses start off. Your book picks up at the functional structure. So at that point, we've gotten to a pretty sizable company, and pretty sizable can still mean 10 employees, but it means that we've gotten to a place where we can hire functional specialists. And so functional specialist is a person who manages finance, or will hire a marketing person, or will hire like the IT person. So when we're able to hire specialists, that is the functional structure. And then once the company gets even larger, then we expand into a divisional structure. And division just means that we are dividing the company into divisions, into business segments, and then within each division or business segment, we have the functional specialists. So if we have functional specialists for marketing, finance, IT, then that means that we have those functional specialists for each of the divisions. So if we have division A, B, and C, then we have those 3 functional specialists for each of those divisions, meaning 9 functional specialists. So we have, each division has its own functional specialists. So a divisional structure can play out in many ways. So we have a product divisional structure, and so that's when we create our divisions based on our various products. So if we have product A, product B, and product C, then our division is based on a focus on product A. So division 1 is focused on product A, division 2 is focused on product B, and division 3 is focused on product C. Also, we can create a geographic divisional structure. So that just means that our divisions are based on geography. So we can have a Eastern US division, a Western US division, and a Southern US division. And then we can also have a market divisional structure. And so here it's based on the customer we're serving. So division 1 can focus on our adult customers, and division 2 can focus on our children customers, for instance. And then we also have global versions for these structures, and that's just when our company is international. Another more complicated structure is called the matrix structure. And so this is kind of a project-based structure. So a company that does a lot of projects might be more likely to do a matrix structure. And so that's essentially when you have divisions based on function and project. So if you are an employee in accounting, you are a part of your accounting group, but then you are also a member of whatever project you're working on outside of accounting. So you're a member of the accounting group, but then you've also been asked to work on project A. So you have dual membership. You're in the accounting department, and then you're in the accounting A group, and you report to 2 managers. So what I want you to remember about the matrix structure is that the employees at this kind of organization report to 2 managers. They report to their functional manager, and then they also report to their project manager. And I think you can kind of guess how this sort of setup can lead to some confusion with employees, because in reporting to 2 managers, you have to then decide how to prioritize the projects you're working on and your tasks, right? Because your accounting manager has expectations of you and deadlines, but then you also have expectations and deadlines associated with project A. So A type of company where you would see a setup sort of like this would be like an accounting firm, because you are in your specific group within your firm, but then you also might go out to audit other companies, so you're on an auditing team as well. So it's like you have to report to your manager back at your office, but then you also have your auditing team lead who you have to report to. So a simpler version of the matrix structure would be the product team structure. And so similar to the matrix structure, you are part of a functional team. So you are from marketing, but then you're asked to work on this project with this other team. So in the product team structure, you're only expected to report to your team lead. You don't have to have any assignments associated with your functional manager. That person is not there to give you more tasks and give you more deadlines. Your responsibility in this kind of structure, the product team structure, is just to focus on what your project team manager needs you to do. So for your next steps, I wanted us to revisit the job characteristics model. And so remember, in that model, there were certain characteristics that were really important to incorporate into a job so that employees feel more satisfaction with the job, they perform better on the job, and they're less likely to leave the job. And so I want you to think of the best job you've ever had, and I want you to create a chart with the elements of the job characteristics model on one side of the chart, and then on the other side I want you to talk a little bit about how well your favorite job that you've ever had met those characteristics. And if they fell short on meeting one or more of those characteristics, talk about it and just say what they could have done better. And then I want you to copy and paste that chart into the appropriate forum on Moodle. Okay, so that's it for today's class. I'll see you next time.